Olivia, 8, was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma after doctors noticed a watermelon-sized growth on her abdomen. Olivia was diagnosed a few weeks before lockdown, so her family has noticed a difference between being on the ward ordinarily and during a pandemic. When her parents, Chris and Sian, noticed that other parents who had received the diagnosis during lockdown were feeling lost, they informed them about CLIC Sargent and urged them to call their social worker for help. It will be great if you like and share this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon next to it to get notified when we add new interesting videos in the future. Now, let's get back to the story. A month following Olivia's diagnosis, Chris signed up for the Paul's House to Paris cycle to raise funds for the charity. Despite the fact the event has been postponed until the year after, he was dedicated to raising cash and awareness for children with cancer. Before Christmas, she'd go to bed at night and complain about a stomach ache, like normal kids do. She would come back down and say, "My stomach really hurts." We'd say, "Have a glass of water." And she'd go upstairs, we'd go and check on her, and she'd be fast asleep. This happened a few times before Christmas. Then we noticed just after Christmas, she had a little bit of a paunch. We thought perhaps we really need to cut down her having chocolate because she was a bit of a belly on her. We got to the other side of Christmas and it started to become more apparent that she would be complaining more often. She would go to bed at night and then she would come down again and say, "My stomach really hurts." In the end, it got to the point she was complaining so much, we took her to the doctors who then sent us off to A&E. All the signs were pointing to the appendicitis because of her pain and where it was. After our first visit to A&E, there was supposed to be a scan and it was missed. We were sent home as Olivia showed no signs of being clinically unwell. A few days after that visit, we noticed Olivia was getting worse. So Sian called the on-call surgical team that we had seen the week before to find out when the scan was going to happen. They had no record of the scan that should have been scheduled, so they told us to come into the A&E department at Bedford Hospital and see if they could get it done that day. The doctor who does appendix removals came to see us when he realized we'd been missed. He got her seen straight away. Based on that scan, they thought she had a perforation on her appendix that looked as though it had healed, but was likely that or a cyst that was infected. She was admitted to the children's ward for a week of IV antibiotics to treat infection. He was saying he was happy to send her home because it's not causing her any issues, even though she had not eaten for a good few days, and you could see the weight loss. I could see as a dad, I'm concerned about the fact she's not eating. He was said, "She'll be fine. We'll get her back at the end of February, take the appendix out, and it might calm down." He said it looked like there was a cyst next to it. Luckily, her temperature spiked. He said because the temperature spiked, I'm going to take the appendix out. Booked her in the day or so after to get it removed, and she went up for surgery, and we were chatting to another parent in the Bay who said, "She'll only be an hour and a half. My daughter was gone an hour and a half when she had her surgery." We sat there and an hour and a half passed, 2 hours passed, 2.5 hours passed. And then we started thinking, where the hell is she? What's going on? Then 3 hours later, the appendix doctor came in with another surgeon and they pulled the curtain behind her. Sian said, "Where's my baby?" And they said, "She's fine, she's in recovery." They sat us down and told us that when he opened her up, the appendix was absolutely beautiful, but there was a mass, and this mass was attached to the ovary, uterus, stomach, and bowel. And he went and got another surgeon to have a look, and they both feared it could have been a cancerous mass, but not being in the field, weren't 100% sure. The female surgeon even said she felt like she could have removed it, but it had veins coming out of it, so they didn't really want to touch it just in case it caused any issues. So they took a biopsy of it and some surrounding lymph node. When we got back to the ward, they had moved our bed from being in a bay with 8 other families to a room on its own. And that's when loads of doctors and surgeons came to see us. It was quite overwhelming at Bedford. They say that you're going to be Addenbrooke's or London. One of the doctors knew somebody at Addenbrooke's and said, "You're going to Addenbrooke's, don't worry." We got shifted late at night to Addenbrooke's, and the next day they confirmed it was cancer. And they were 99% sure it was Burkitt's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and a scan and blood results confirmed it. She had a mass the size of a watermelon growing in her stomach, I said to him. "I'm a big man, 6'3", and I've got big hands, and it is the size of my fist." And he said, "No, it's bigger." He sat down and went through the plan, and he said because of the size of it, we've got to hit her hard. He said it's aggressive and it's growing bigger. This was on Monday. He said, "Since Friday when I saw you, I can see physically that it's grown." He said that we've got to smash it hard so you'll spend most of your time here. He sat down and said it'll be either a 6-month treatment or an 8-month treatment, depending on how chemo reacts to it. And luckily enough, she rung the bell 3 weeks ago, 27th of June 2020. Sam, the consultant at Addenbrooke's, who have been overseeing the chemo, has said to us when she was on chemo, Olivia is so resilient. There were times when I thought she is actually having chemo, but because she's so good through all of it, she's been ahead of schedule. She's been spot on, so we've been very fortunate. She was ahead of schedule, so it was 5 months of chemo in the end. We think lockdown helped because before lockdown, we were getting parents coming to see us and relatives and friends on the ward, and other patients had relatives on the ward. We think that was making her ill, and she was ill a lot at the beginning. And that's when we were spending a lot of time at Addenbrooke's, and then the lockdown happened. She seemed to stay better, and she seemed more healthier each time, and I think it was not being around people. She was home a maximum of a month in the 5 months. She'd come home a few days at a time, or she might do a week if we were lucky. Her temperature would spike after a couple of days, and then we'd go and she would be back in the hospital for 2 or 3 days, and then she'd be starting the next round of treatment. It was hard work. She had allergic reactions, all of her hair was gone, eyebrows and eyelashes. She's been pretty good. She's not really moaned at all about it. She had some lovely long hair which Sian got cut into a bob, so when it fell out it was easier to handle. She has coped really well. She'd had a really good attitude towards it all. She amazed us. She's like, whatever, I've got cancer and I'm going to beat it. That sort of attitude. The last time we were in there, she was strutting around the ward. They love her. They call her a diva and sassy pants because she's so sassy. Sian was there with her and they let me and Holly go in and see her. I walked up to the door, and to be let into the ward, I had some words I was going to say and stand to say thank you, and there were 3 or 4 nurses that had just finished a night shift but had to come back in their normal clothes to watch her ring the bell, and it got me. I walked in there crying. I couldn't say anything. We've got some lovely memories from the ward at Addenbrooke's considering the situation we were in. I think if we'd have been diagnosed during lockdown, it would have been an absolute nightmare. I feel for the families that have been diagnosed now and the parents with their children of their own. We were so fortunate to get such awful news as a family, to be able to talk things through together, to lean on each other. Some of the new parents weren't even able to have it as it was only one parent allowed at a time during lockdown. When we arrived at Addenbrooke's the first night, I beat the ambulance there, got to the ward. That night was probably my worst experience throughout the whole process because the nurse there scared the living daylights out of me, and I was frightened anyway. So I sat in the room and thought, I don't want to be here. The next day, when the ward awoke and you saw what was around you and what support was available, you felt right at home and knew you were going to be taken care of. Jess from CLIC Sargent has been absolutely magnificent. She said, I'll see what I can do for you straight away. I'm self-employed and I don't know how I could cope with my finances for that long, and she said she would see what she could do with grants and help. She did the best she could, which was really helpful. Jess helped us fill some forms out we needed to fill in regarding claims that we could claim for. She mentioned what help we could get from the different charities and what different funds we could get, just popping in and making sure we were all right every now and again. She gave Olivia a few bits as well, which helped. They're really missing her and the CLIC Sargent presence on the ward at the minute that can offer that kind of support. We shared a bay with 2 new moms recently, and you could see they were lost, and I said, you need to get in touch with CLIC Sargent. I said they will help you out the best they can. With regards to Holly, she struggled with the family being separated so much. The girls share a bedroom as well, so all of a sudden Olivia's not there. Holly felt a little bit lost. She struggled. She's alright now, but there were times I just felt sorry for her. If I was at home with Holly, she just wanted her mommy back. It's been tough. It's also been tough on Samuel, Olivia's older half-brother. As the pandemic hit, we couldn't see him. We've not been able to see him for 3 months. But now treatment has finished and lockdown has eased, he will be back with us before he gets back to school for 3 or 4 weeks. So we're all looking forward to that. We've had some good family time. Even if we're just sat around the house doing nothing, it's just nice to all be together. We can all be together in August. I was hoping they would have the Hickman line out in August so we could perhaps go away for a few days, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case now. There's a queue and there's another 20-odd kid in front of her. Sam, our consultant, said he was hoping to get it out before she goes back to school in September, so she has some sort of normality with the other kids around her. They'd have to be careful of it because the other kids are going to want to cuddle her, I should imagine, but he said it doesn't look likely now as there is such a queue. That's one of the reasons why I signed up to do the bike ride, so I could give something back, and I felt like I was helping out. It was the end of February, I'd be settled down and I watched it a couple of times, and I mentioned to my mate that I fancy doing this thing in September, and he said let's do it next year, when you've got not so much on your plate, because your mind is going to be full of what's going on. And I was adamant. I said I think is something I need to do this year, so it's fresh and it'll take my mind off what's going on. When I'm home, I can get on my bike and smash a few miles. So we signed up end of February, March, and I mentioned it to another mate and both of them said yes straight away. There was another mate who wanted to do it but clashed with him rowing in the World Masters Championships. Luckily, that's been canceled, so I've roped him into doing it as well. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe and share the video. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next one.